All right, so this review is going to be on Chapter 13, which is the last chapter in our Tech and Society online workbook. So this chapter discusses technologists' responsibility for the future of society. This is a very interesting topic. The first one is technology research on the leading edge. So the National Science and Technology Policy. Basically, the contributors to this are industrial firms, the government, colleges, and universities, R&D centers, and nonprofit institutions. So basically what this is it's using applied research to gain knowledge. It studies the investments, puts them into charts, and also the development associated with them. So some leading edge technologies include implants, transistors, data mining, which we had a discussion board about, digital rights management, or DRM, which is basically online encryptions that help keep your information safe, biometrics, robotics, natural language processing, NLP for short, just using technology to produce a human-like response, microphotonics, which is used in the medical field, and microfluidics, which is a physics thing. So the next section refers to living life on the edge, and as basically it's speaking to the risks associated with new technology. So as we'll talk about it later in the chapter, with every give, there's a take, there's a cause and an effect of everything in life. Every decision you make is going to have its good and its bad. What these new technologists take on is that there's a good chance of failure. I mean, there's new inventions all the time that do not take off. So they metaphorically live life on the edge. The next heading is technology management. So the first tab on technology management would be tech assessment. So this is basically the process of making projections about the future states of specific technology so we can assess and plan for the impact on society. So basically what this is saying is when you bring new technology onto the market, you want to be able to study its impact, and that'll help you forecast kind of the life cycle of the technology and help you make accurate predictions. So my example of this would probably be, think of your new software updates on the iPhone. Each one they don't want to give you all that information at first, so they'll spread it out. So like we have iOS 17, 17.1, 17.2, 17.3. They have to gradually implement this technology as it becomes available. And they can kind of forecast and foreshadow what the perception is going to be based on studies and projections and stuff like that. So that's basically using tech assessment. Ethical dilemmas in tech. The tech imperative, if it is possible to develop it, do it. That is not necessarily always the case. People don't always have people's best interest at heart. So kind of what I was going for there is sometimes technology is developed for a idea or a purpose that isn't exactly good for society. Think of dirty weapons, dirty bombs, things like that sort, or malware, different things kind of like that. I mean, some military things could fall into that category too. They're not necessarily essential, but it's just whatever you deem ethical or what your morals are kind of to dictate what technology you think is right. So next, we're going to get into technology risk assessment. So we have a cause and effect relationship as everything comes together. And what they do is they group it in different phases. So the cause and effect relationship is heavily reliant on computer modeling, but it's not always accurate because there's always different variables. That's hard to compile that much information into one thing. And so they divide it into 3 phases. So phase 1 is how much exposure is there to the general population. Phase 2 is how much absorption the population has, and what is the hazard imposed of this. So kind of think of how they categorized COVID. So how much exposure is there in the general population? How many people were affected? And how many people did it kill? So that's kind of a extreme example, but that's basically what they're saying here. So like if a potentially damaging software was introduced to the population, how many people were exposed to this bad technology? How many people remembered it or utilized it? And what were the implications of that? Is basically what the 3-phase process is talking about. So the next one is analogous relationships or animal studies. So basically they exposed animals to chemicals or toxic substances and measured how they respond to it, and then created a dosage response curve based on the amount it took before they started seeing changes. The issue with this, though, is that humans and animals metabolize substances differently. So if you think about this, it seems like perfect sense. I mean, animals can drink dirty water that we cannot drink as humans. They can eat food that we cannot eat as humans. So therefore, when they're exposed to other substances, they aren't going to react the same way we do. It's common sense, or at least it should be. But it does give them a general idea of how we might react. So that's why I think they kind of do that. So risk communication is important because, as the book says, risks are everywhere. A risk analyst has to give the best estimate of the outcome. They're also called risk assessments. Extremely important especially in today's society. We take a lot of risks on a daily basis, and sometimes it's just kind of nice to know the likelihood of us getting in trouble or being affected by those risks. So that's where we get to the risk assessments. So forecasting for a responsible future. So there's 3 forecasting techniques that the book's described. You have the Delphi study, which is the example they used is basically they'll find some subject matter experts in a particular field. They will mail them or send them basically a response template, and they will record the responses and look for trends in the responses. The next one is a futures wheel. Basically, people get together and create a visual diagram in order to help predict the future. And content analysis, basically, they'll do over the course of like a year or so, I think, if I remember right from one of my industrial management classes when we studied trends. They'll keep track of something for over the course of a year and record where the trends happen, and then they can usually pretty accurately predict 2 years out, relatively short term or medium range, and it's usually relatively accurate without some outside implications. But the part of this that I think probably made me question everything, and I think it perfectly capped off what we've been going over, is the technologist's responsibility. So it talked about everything that we have, but what we have because of what we have. So basically, knowledge and information don't always equal understanding of this. You see that a lot with our elderly community, where they have all this knowledge and information but don't know what to do with it. And it's the same thing with us younger kids. I mean, we have the world at our fingertips, but because everything comes so easy to us sometimes, we don't always understand how to use it. So comfort and convenience lead to more risks, which is true. That's the trade-off you get. You get to live comfortably. You get to have everything at your fingertips. You get to order on stuff online, but it leads to risks of stuff being stolen off your doorstep because you got it delivered when you're at work. It has the possibility of getting mixed up in the mail. You have risks of going to a bad website, purchasing something, and now your credit card's on the internet. I mean, tons of different stuff now we pay for because we have all those conveniences. We have more weapons, but no greater sense of security because everybody else has those weapons too. We have more communication but less cohesion. So we have all the texting and social media at our fingertips, but it has in turn hurt our personal relationships and overall cohesion. We have more education but less appreciation for the education because everything is at our fingertips now. And if we want to learn something, we can just Google it. We have more choices on what to do, but we have less time to do it because of the busyness syndrome in today's society where everybody feels like they have to be so busy. And the two questions that I think it left asked is, who do we owe our appreciation for this technology, and who do we hold accountable? And the answer is, you do both. It's the same thing. I mean, whoever created the technology also opened the door for all of the risks associated with the technology. So the same person who meant to do good also opened the door for some bad. So I mean, that's kind of a slippery slope, and honestly, it creates a really interesting topic of discussion. But overall, I think chapter 13 was a great cap off to all the chapters we learned about this semester, and overall, Tech and Society was an extremely interesting class, and I think it opened my eyes more to a lot of things in society that I previously hadn't given much thought to. So, with that being said, I'm going to sign off for the last time here, and yeah, I enjoyed the class, and I hope everybody has a good Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you.